Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
Welcome to a special edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. COVID-19 has impacted us all, and so we're doing some remote taping. I want to say a special thank you to the Launch Media team, John Jackson, Chris Janson, Nick Savides, great team of professionals that have helped put this together. We got a really interesting show for you today. We're going to visit with Guy Williams. He's the president and CEO of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, and Gary Littlefield, who is the Baton Rouge market president for Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, and also serves as the chairman of the Louisiana Bankers Association. We'll be joined by Guy and by Gary when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Louisiana businesses, by partnering with your local community and technical college foundation, you're guaranteed a skilled, highly competent workforce, homegrown talent, trained specifically to meet your needs, whatever those needs are. Visit this website to learn more about how to partner with your local Louisiana Community and Technical College Foundation. To better prepare for tomorrow, become a partner today.
At Optimal, we understand what's at stake during your projects. That's why we value integrity, trust, and expertise. We retain proven and experienced craftsmen, and with multiple locations, we can execute hundreds of customized project solutions across the country, so you stay ahead of schedule and under budget. At Optimal, you come first, plain and simple. We have your back, and we always deliver. Experience the Optimal difference.
Are you a licensed contractor? There's lots of good contractors in Louisiana doing work the right way, but unfortunately, too many unlicensed contractors are working outside the licensing requirements. Working as a contractor in Louisiana requires a license for the company doing the work. The Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors wants to help you get licensed to allow you to conduct work legally. It's not difficult to get the license. We can help you. Go to lacontractor.org for more information. Licensed contractors, it's the law.
For 8 seconds in the arena before an afternoon in the field. For a promise to students that honors success in the classroom. For championships earned on the bayou. For innovators committed to reclaiming our coastline. The Universities of Louisiana. For your future. For our future.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Very pleased to be joined by two folks who are prominent in Louisiana's banking industry, particularly Louisiana's small banking industry. We've got Guy Williams. He's the president and CEO of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, and Gary Littlefield. He is the Baton Rouge market president of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, and also serves as the chairman this year of the Louisiana Bankers Association. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Well, glad to be there.
Guy, let's start with you. Talk a little bit about the history of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, your growth, the current status of the bank.
Happy to. Gulf Coast Bank started in 1990. This was in another crisis. It was the S&L crisis, high interest rates, a number of financial institutions failed, and we purchased a small savings and loan that had 13 employees and about 30 million in assets. So that is how we began. We've grown since then by acquiring a number of other smaller institutions and then acquiring some business lending operations. The result is we're now a national lender. We have people in 19 different states, 650 employees. And as I say, we lend across the entire United States.
I have the pleasure of being one of your clients. I do my business banking through Gulf Coast Bank and Trust. And Gary, maybe you can jump in on this because I think I know some of these answers, but I think it's critical for our audience to hear them as well. What do you guys believe differentiates Gulf Coast Bank and Trust from your competition?
Well, there's a couple things, Tim, and I tell this story all the time. First of all, it's the leadership. Guy Williams obviously sets the tone for us and has set the tone since day one. That's 30 years now. His executive management team is just absolutely fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's our folks, it's our people. Okay, the professional bankers we have in every branch, the professional bankers we have across the network that Guy just described to you, all 19 states, from Minneapolis to Phoenix, Arizona to Destin, Florida. Absolutely a fabulous team of bankers all the way across the board, all dedicated to helping out their customers in their, certainly in their communities.
Guy, I want to get you to weigh in on this, because I talk a lot on this show with business leaders about culture. And the saying goes that culture sort of beats strategy every day of the week. The culture of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, when you walk into one of the branches, you're treated like a human, like an individual. It is almost spooky to me how everyone knows me by my first name, no matter which branch I walk into. Culture starts at the top, Guy. Talk a little bit about how you manage that and how you've created this culture within this organization that allows for that personal touch.
Thank you very much. That is our objective. We really have a very simple focus, which is do the right thing for the customer. Everything else will fall into place. And the interesting thing is we have done that from the beginning. The result is, whether it was the financial crisis, the BP oil spill, Hurricane Katrina, we've always been able to work through the crisis. But what's important to us is we've also have never been in regulatory trouble. We've never had to pay a fine. We've never been sanctioned. And I think it comes down to there's a lot of compliance, a lot of rules in banking, but you can simplify it down to doing the right thing for the customer. And that really works. The other thing is we have an objective of making sure that whatever advice we give is something we'll be very comfortable with, so that the customers' children and grandchildren look back and say, you know what, the bank really did do the right thing. So that has worked well for us. That's the strength of our bank, and it really is the one thing that permeates everything that we do.
Gary, you are serving this year as chairman of the Louisiana Bankers Association. I know you take that organization and your responsibility in leadership there very, very seriously. Let's talk briefly about the LBA, what you guys do, and specifically what you might be doing in terms of the crisis.
Well, we picked up the ball about 3 weeks ago, Tim. Bob Taylor, who's our CEO, and I basically got together way ahead of this thing and said, look, we've got to start having conference calls. We've got to start bringing the bankers together. We've got to start communicating to find out what is going to be happening, even though we hadn't seen the final result, and still right now still don't have a lot of the final information. We have an interim final on the guidelines from SBA right now, but we wanted to get as much information out, and that's part of the purpose, is for us as an LBA, as a Louisiana Bankers Association, to get out there and support our community banks. We have about 116 banks domiciled in the state, about 9 banks that operate in Louisiana from outside the state. So our main purpose, our main focus is on those community banks that serve their communities every day. So that has been our mantra from day one. We've had those calls. We go Monday through Saturday at 2:00 every day to try to get as much information in those bankers' hands as we can. Guy's been a tremendous resource, and it's kind of ironic. Guy had just finished his term as chairman of the LBA when Katrina hit, so he was immediate past chair. Correct me if I'm wrong, Guy. So he had the ability to step in as that person who really led the banking community through that Katrina crisis. And as president and CEO of the bank, he's done the same thing at every juncture, whether it's been the financial crisis he mentioned or the Deepwater Horizon, et cetera. So our bank, that I'm very proud to work for, is one of those people that has been set up and really can deliver when these kind of crises hit us.
Guys, we're going to take a break. When I come back, Guy, I want to talk just briefly about your role this year as chairman of the Greater New Orleans Inc. organization. Michael Hecht and his team doing some great work down in the Greater New Orleans area as well. We're visiting with Guy Williams and Gary Littlefield of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
Welcome to Southwest Louisiana. 5 parishes working hand in hand to provide economic development, opportunity, and quality of life. $43 billion in projects underway, $65 billion in the pipeline, 18,000 construction workers, and 18,000 permanent jobs. It's all here. Welcome to Opportunity, the Southwest Louisiana Alliance.
Louisiana businesses, by partnering with your local community and technical college foundation, you're guaranteed a skilled, highly competent workforce, homegrown talent, trained specifically to meet your needs, whatever those needs are. Visit this website to learn more about how to partner with your local Louisiana Community and Technical College Foundation. To better prepare for tomorrow, become a partner today.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging time.
It's about doing the right thing for our customers.
We're right there with you. Gulf Coast Bank is invested in technology with a local touch, a smart way to manage your money and your time. With our mobile banking app, you can make deposits, check balances, transfer money, pay bills, and more. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you. Member FDIC. Message and data rates may apply.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. An important conversation today about the COVID-19 crisis and the impact on our economy, and specifically what small business banks are doing to help their customers. We're visiting with Guy Williams. He's president and CEO of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, and Gary Littlefield, who is the Baton Rouge market president for that organization. Guy, in the end of the last segment, we talked a little bit with Gary about his role as chairman in 2020 of the Louisiana Bankers Association. You are serving as chairman of G&O Inc., very critical regional economic development organization in the greater New Orleans area. Talk about some of the work that Michael Hecht and his great team are doing under your leadership.
G&O Inc. is the regional business development arm for Southeast Louisiana. So our objective is, as an organization, is to look at what's best for this region and how we can best prep ourselves for the future. Only 6 weeks ago, we celebrated having the largest meeting ever with over 1,200 people crammed into a ballroom. Now, what we're working on is a strategy of first minimizing the damage. This is a terrible event. We're a service economy. We're a tourist economy. We need to minimize the damage. Second, we're focusing with our investors and constituents on preparing for the reopening. We got some really good news this week. It looks like we may be at the peak of damage for COVID-19. So from here on out, if the numbers are right, we should see a decline in hospital admissions, a decline in deaths, which means the next thing that happens is we'll reopen this economy. So we need to prepare for that. We have a little bit of time, but there's a lot that goes into that. And then finally, G&O Inc. always focuses on the long-term future for the state. This is a defining event, but the state has problems that have been festering for years, and we are focusing on what do we do going forward? How do we work on early childhood? How do we adequately fund education? What do we do to make this a state where people are flying to Louisiana to celebrate Thanksgiving instead of going somewhere else because their friends and relatives have moved out of state?
Well, on behalf of all of the businesses that operate and do business in the greater New Orleans area, thank you to you and the G&O Inc. team for the work that you're doing. I know that's critically important. Let's talk about the impact of the coronavirus, of COVID-19. These stay-at-home orders and the impact that it's having, as you both have mentioned, on businesses all across our state, in fact, across the country, the impact has been significant. Now, I believe as bankers, you guys probably have a unique insight into what's going on. Let's talk about the perspective that both of you have on the economy. Guy, let's start with you, and then Gary, you chime in when you can.
First, Louisiana is really fortunate to be a great state that a lot of people want to visit, but when you have a stay-at-home order, that means no one can visit. So Our hotels, our restaurants, our musicians, those people are all suffering throughout South Louisiana. And it's really unfortunate because there's nothing that they can do about it. When you're a musician and miss a chance to play, you can't make that up later. So same thing for bartenders, restaurants, meals that you don't serve can't be reserved later on. So a lot of our economy is really hurt right now because of this stay at home. And then we have the unfortunate coincidence that Saudi and Russia are both fighting about oil. And that really is the other leg of the Louisiana economy. So our oil and gas economy is suffering at the same time. So what we're doing is working with people, taking advantage of the federal programs, going over the options so that people can get through this crisis. And it is a short-term crisis. It's not going to last forever. We will be through it, whether it's 4 weeks from now or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It is going to end, and we want to make sure the businesses are here. We want to make sure that we're ready for that recovery to follow.
You're mentioning of the depressed oil prices. You know, you think about gas at $1.80 a gallon, and there are probably a lot of folks across the country that are pretty happy about that, but the significant impact that it has on businesses in the state of Louisiana and, quite frankly, our state's treasury is significant. Gary, your perspective on the economic impact of COVID-19.
Well, Tim, it's hurt everybody. I mean, we're talking A to Z. Everybody in my client base, at both of my branches, all 19 branches have been affected. And so we started a campaign very quickly to reach out to them before we even knew the program was going to be available to us and how the program was going to be laid out, just to make sure that they knew we were going to be there for them. Let them know we are a delegated authority with the SBA. Again, that's Guy's leadership. He stepped into that authority many years ago and has proven it's proven to be a very good thing for us from our standpoint because we know what to do. We've been one of the top SBA lenders in the state. We also have a group of lenders, SBA lenders out of Dallas that Guy put together several years ago that have been helping us with this process. So everybody's been impacted. My conversations with my clients have been the same since day one. Please start to get the information to us. It's been very consistent. Get your payroll service person, get your CPA to get us this information. We think this is what we're going to need. Here's the application we think is going to be provided or will be provided to us. Some of that's changed in the last 72 hours. That's okay. We went ahead and redirected them. We've got our portal set up. We're starting the process. I can't say enough about our loan ops people, our loan ops team, the entire team that surrounds that. You know, on top of all this, as Guy mentioned, we're working remotely. I'm at my house right now, and so I chuckle when people talk about gas prices. I've had a full tank of gas in my Yukon XL now for 3 weeks, and that's kind of a crazy thing. I've been to the office maybe a couple times. So gas prices is not where I'm focused right now. It's taking care of our client base and any prospects I might be able to take care of.
Let's take a break, guys. We come back, I want to focus on those specific programs, specifically the payroll protection program that is part of the larger CARES Act. We're visiting with Guy Williams and Gary Littlefield of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Tim Johnson here for the Louisiana Energy Export Association. LEA members are investing more than $60 billion in Louisiana's economy, creating more than 1,500 permanent jobs and 20,000 construction jobs. Louisiana is a global leader in energy export, and LEA is the voice of that industry. Check them out on their website to learn more.
For more than 20 years, the TJC Group has been helping companies assess their training needs and to develop programs that improve the effectiveness and productivity of their teams.
Training doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. Let us put our experience and expertise to work for you.
The TJC Group, facilitating solutions for business and industry.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust President and CEO Guy Williams and Baton Rouge Market President Gary Littlefield are our guests. Guy, let's talk big picture about the CARES Act. I think it was March 27th. It was finally signed into law by President Trump, about $2 trillion in stimulus and relief. It's got some elements to it that are really good for both small and large businesses. Give us your big picture overview.
Good thing about the CARES Act is Congress learned from the last financial crisis. If you remember last time, it took 18 months for all the different programs to unroll. This time they've rolled it out just in a matter of weeks. Now, this is going to result in a little bit of hiccup, few bumps in the road, but we really commend the administration, Treasury, and SBA for getting it up so quickly. We opened the Gulf Coast Bank portal Sunday night, and in the first 24 hours had $197 million in loan applications.
Wow.
So it gives you an idea of the volume. That's over 2,000 different customers and non-customers applying. So significant volume. Because we're an experienced SBA lender, we're able to push that through. We have SBA numbers, and as soon as SBA delivers closing documents, we'll start funding. But for the viewers, let me just talk about the program in general. There are three parts. The economic disaster part is a loan up to $2 million. When you apply for that, you get a $10,000 application check within 2 weeks that's not repayable if you don't get the loan. And if you do get a payroll protection loan, it's part of that forgiveness. But that loan can be used for any purpose, like inventory, permanent working capital. It's a 3.75% interest rate. So we advise businesses to look at their needs and apply for that. The one that people are most excited about is payroll protection. And it's sized based upon 2.5 months of your trailing 12 months payroll. So 2.5 months payroll gives you the size of the loan. If you use it to retain your employees, it's completely forgivable starting in 7 to 8 weeks. So it's important to do it based on payroll. It's important to use it primarily for payroll. You can do a little bit of other things with it, but it's really designed to keep people on the payroll. So if you do that, it's completely forgivable. And then the last thing that people don't talk about very much, but it's important, is the regular 7A program. The limit was pushed to 10 million. And when you get that loan, there's no application fee. And what's most interesting is your rich uncle, Uncle Sam, will make your first 6 months payments for you. That's not a loan, that's not forgiveness. The SBA will make your first 6 months payments for you on a traditional 7A loan. So we're seeing folks that are acquiring companies that are expanding and using that. So this is a good opportunity for people to look at all the programs, the economic disaster, the payroll protection, or the 7A, and pick the one that makes most sense for them.
Gary, Guy mentioned, I think, $129 million just in applications just within the first 24 hours. I think I saw something earlier in the week where Wells Fargo had maybe reached their cap within a 24-hour period or so. Is there any concern about these programs being oversubscribed? I know that as we sit here and tape on Tuesday afternoon, I think the federal government has announced maybe another $200 billion or so that might potentially be going into the stimulus program. Overall thoughts or concerns about sort of running out of the stimulus?
No, I don't think so. I think Mnuchin's on top of this. I think President Trump has said from day one he's going to do whatever it takes to keep this economy alive. And one of the things I thought that was great that Guy mentioned is the 7A program. And part of that's going to be bigger picture, okay, from the standpoint of moving manufacturing back into the United States. those 7A programs are going to be part and parcel to the success of a lot of those manufacturers moving back to the United States. So we're not reliant on a foreign country to supply that. The other thing that I'll mention very quickly is existing 7A loans that we have in our book will also have that 6-month payment be taken care of by the SBA. So that's huge. That puts 6 months worth of payments into the capital of that company. And, you know, that's going to be tremendous for them to get their liquidity boosted back up from that standpoint. So some of those customers, I had one the other day that their payments are $28,000 a month on their 7A loan. You can do the math very quickly. So yeah, we're pushing that information out. I'd say 95% of the traffic that we've been dealing with at Gulf Coast, and Guy, correct me if I'm wrong, has been the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. We've had a few EIDL applications that have come through. We're starting to see some 7As because people see the light at the end of the tunnel. They figure if we can get through this payroll situation and keep our employees paid, then we are definitely going to need to recapitalize and possibly expand our business.
Gary, the governor and his team have done a really nice job sort of leading us through this crisis. And he and Don Pearson, the Secretary of Louisiana Economic Development, announced last week a Louisiana loan portfolio program. Tell us briefly about that.
They have done a great job, and I applaud the governor. I applaud Don Pearson. The secretary has been on a couple of our LBA calls in the last week very quickly. As you know, this is going to be administered by the Louisiana Public Facilities Authority. It is a $50 million, 20% LED guarantee program, up to $100,000 per applicant. That includes affiliates. So right now, about 2/3 of that program has been subscribed through our LBA member banks, and we're so excited about that, Jim.
Guys, we got a little over a minute left in the show, so I'd like each of you to take just a few seconds and, you know, tell us, what advice do you have for small business people in our state about where we're going and going forward with these programs, and maybe some encouragement about, you know, this economy eventually coming back?
My advice to our customers is, first, don't make a bad long-term decision because of a temporary circumstance. Get ready for the recovery. It's coming. And then the other thing, just in your family life, in your business line, be kind to the people around you. Everyone's under stress, and you don't really know what anyone else is dealing with. And there's never a downside to being kind to the people around you.
Well said, my friend. Gary?
I've always been one to hug my customers. Obviously can't do that right now, but we're hugging them in a different way. We're hugging them by connecting with them. We're making sure that their text messages, their emails, and their phone calls are getting returned promptly. And I told Guy this before we started the program. I can't tell you how many dozens of people have reached out to me, and because of the fact we've returned those phone calls and text messages and emails, are now looking to move that business, the rest of their business in some cases, to Gulf Coast Bank and Trust. So that's the message. Hang in there. We're going to get through this. As soon as we can push the go button, it's going to happen.
Well, listen, I'm grateful to both of you for being on the show today and for providing great information for our statewide audience. But I'm also grateful personally for the support that you've given to my business over the years. Guy Williams, Gary Littlefield, Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, thank you both for being with us today.
Thanks, Tim.
That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe and healthy during this crisis, and join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.